All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One opposed, okay. That carries. And that takes us to R 195 of 2018. And this one comes from the Redevelopment Authority. Alderperson Durancic.
Yes, the Redevelopment Authority recommends R 195, 2018, authorizing and directing the City of Stoughton Redevelopment Authority to move forward with developing a master plan for the Central Business District. Okay.
So that's the recommendation, and I think what we wanted to do is just kind of have a discussion on what this means. I don't know if you want to start it, Denise, or Attorney Dragney will jump in. We had a meeting, a conference call this afternoon to discuss this.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to give the council some background. I guess back in October at an RDA meeting, it came up in discussion about kind of a master plan for the Central Business District. And the RDA, was really receptive to that. So in November, I kind of put together what you have before you. I looked at the different TID districts. Of course, the RDA has authority in TID 5, but TID 4 actually extends into TID 5. So there is an overlap. And our comprehensive land use plan, as you saw in the packet, has many references to a master plan for the downtown area. And of course, in the spring of 2018, 78% of the citizens directed the city government to focus on revitalizing our downtown. And also I found out that there is about $150,000 in TID 4 for planning. So if in fact we want to go ahead with this idea of a master plan for the downtown, there's actually planning money available in TID 4. And since TID 4 overlaps TID 5, we would have that monies available to us. And during our discussion in November, we were thinking of not just a small area, but kind of the whole downtown area. Because of course, what's going to happen with the development on the riverfront and a whitewater park, there's going to be challenges and opportunities. Challenges being that there's going to be more traffic and parking issues, which the downtown already complains about. And of course, there's going to be other opportunities for retail. And an area that we really haven't worked on is kind of the east end of the downtown area. Some of it is in TID 4, most of it is in TID 5, and we need to improve the increment for our TID 5 if we're going to quote unquote break even in the end. So the RDA thought it would be a good idea to kind of get this rolling, so to speak, get us to start to talk about it, think about it. The committee itself, the RDA felt that they could kind of oversee a committee if that would be, what the city council would like. But as our attorney has already kind of pointed out to us, we have some kind of legal issues which he will kind of talk to us about, I think, because we didn't realize that there were two different state statutes and we're not quite sure kind of what we're going to do with that.
I was kind of prompted by just the question, what's the end goal here? What kind of plan are we talking about? And as the discussion, part of the discussion that we had today focused on the idea that the people who are looking at this noted that in the comprehensive plan itself, there are some recommendations, including recommendations for the development of more detailed neighborhood plans for example, the downtown area. And as I understood kind of what the plan was saying about that was that these were envisioned as neighborhood plans that would then be approved as amendments to the comprehensive plan and be part of the comprehensive plan. If that is the end goal, and there are reasons why it might be, because if it's part of the comprehensive plan, then it has a different legal standing than if it's maybe another kind of plan. In any event, if that's the end goal, then there is a legal process the city needs to follow to actually approve an amendment to your comprehensive plan. And one of the questions is, well, under the typical process that the statute outlines is that the Plan Commission is responsible for developing and then making a recommendation to the council about amendments to the comprehensive plan. And so one of the questions is whether the council would have the authority to say, authorize the RDA to do that instead of, or as an alternative to the Plan Commission. And the answer to that is it might. I'm not certain yet. We're going to have to look at that if that's something the council's interested in, because the statute says the Plan Commission or other body authorized. And so I'm not sure what that means yet. And we might need to look and see if the statute says that, for example, the RDA can be authorized to do this. But if that's the kind of plan that the people are interested in other words, a detailed neighborhood plan that is in fact made a part of the comprehensive plan, then we have to follow the legal process to do that. There are other kinds of plans. There's endless kinds of plans that the statutes talk about as plans that might be developed. So for example, the redevelopment authority has, under the statute that relates to redevelopment authorities, the power to recommend to the council a redevelopment plan for a redevelopment area. It didn't sound like that was exactly what the group had in mind. Of course, there are project plans already approved for the TIF districts that have been discussed here. So I think the question, part of the question is, what are you trying, what's your end goal look like? And depending on what that, how you answer that question, that it may influence what kind of process you need to follow to get there. And so I'm happy to help with that. I think where we ended in the discussion today was that at least you were thinking that perhaps it is an amendment to the comprehensive plan that is what you're interested in. And if you want to pursue that and you want to look at whether the RDA could really be the body that works on that instead of the Plan Commission, we can look at that.
I'd like to kind of point out to people that as you read through Chapter 3, which is where the recommendation comes for a master plan for downtown, there's a lot of talk about revitalization, redevelopment, encouraging public and private partnerships to promote investment in downtown. So, there's, I think, a lot of different aspects to this plan, and the RDA thought that it kind of fell underneath, their purview, if you want to say, because we're involved in kind of redevelopment and revitalization. And that's kind of a lot of the wording that is being used here. Now, I know that people have asked, so what are your goals? Well, we would have to form a committee, and the committee would essentially have to come up with, the goals for the plan. As I keep pointing out, I have heard for years that people in the downtown area are concerned about parking and traffic. Is there also options for housing? And of course, we would like to see, improvements on the eastern end of the downtown, be it business or housing. But to me, it's, as I presented it to the RDA, we need some kind of a blueprint. We need to go to stakeholders. We need to talk to them. What do they want? What would our goals be for our plan? And what kind of are some of the steps? I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at the Waukesha plan that was in your packet, but that is an excellent plan where they, identified 3 major goals, and then they identified objectives that would lead them to their goals. So, this is kind of the beginning of a discussion, shall we say.
Okay. So the resolution that's in the packet, we're not so certain we should vote on that tonight because of the questions posed by the city attorney and the review that he still has to do. But we would like to know whether or not there's support for us to go forward with this, and then we can determine later if it's going to be the RDA, the Planning Commission, the City Council, or other body that may, work toward putting this type of plan together. So we're looking for some questions or comments or feedback. Anybody have any thoughts? President Majewski.
I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. I like the fact that we're looking at a zone of the city that is in more detail and a little more intricately planned, so that when things arise that we are prepared for it and that we know exactly what we want. I always thought that our comprehensive plan is too nebulous, and I'd actually like to see us eventually kind of move out and do it for the entire city.
No.
Where we have much more details in how we want to expand, so that we don't have issues coming at us that seem like they're out of control and cause a lot of friction for developers and for the citizens.
Okay, thank you. Alderperson Bartlett.
Yeah, I support this. I'm a little concerned. I just don't want to focus only on the east side. I want to make sure it focuses on downtown in the entirety, that we're not just doing one part of the downtown. I think we need to look at it as a whole, the comprehensive area, so we have a good plan going forward. And I would support this, and would like to see this morph later on, maybe into an economic development committee or something later on, so it could become more permanent, hopefully, if they're successful with this. I would like to also look at possibly maybe combining some of the other committees or removing some of the committees that aren't quite as needed, because we are loaded down pretty heavily with committees. So if we could look at that as well, 1 or 2 of those, maybe combining them. But I would support this.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to point out that, we can't say this will happen, but we're hoping that if in fact we look at the whole downtown and we can bring the downtown merchants together, that hopefully we can have them start to work together as kind of a group. We, because Sharon came to us several weeks ago and talked to us about what she did. And I've talked with Sharon, and she would be very interested in working on this committee, and I would be very interested in working on this committee. And, this is one of her hopes and my hopes too, is really, can we help to coalesce the downtown businesses together? Would this help help them, so to speak? And it wouldn't be just the east side. I focus kind of on the east side because that is an area that really needs help. But we want to make sure that the whole downtown, and if you read the resolution, it's from Page Street to the railroad tracks. So, and we know that, the parking and the traffic is the whole downtown. So that's kind of one of our hopes that might materialize from something like this.
Alderperson Hirsch.
Denise, I know we talked about this in RDA, but with the Waukesha plan, did they hired a consultant to help guide them through,
Yeah.
or how did they actually do it?
Well, we would have to hire a consultant to help guide a committee. And, I've been talking with Gary Becker, and, his recommendation was that, the committee would need to be made up of at least, a member of the City Council, RDA, maybe the Planning Commission, and at least, 2 or 3 business owners from downtown, and hopefully some other citizens. And that group would, basically guide the process with the help of a consultant. That's why I made sure that there was money in the TID for planning, because we would have to hire a consultant. And Gary didn't think we would be spending $150,000, but yes, we would have to spend money on a consultant, because of course, you're going to have to get data, and somebody's going to have to get the data for you. We would probably do a number of stakeholder meetings, obviously, and then people would have to compile that information. So yeah, we would have to have a consultant, and if you looked at that plan from Waukesha, it's pretty detailed, and it's going to take them time to implement it all, but at least they have a roadmap.
I have, Attorney Dragney has something, and then Alderperson Jensen would be on that.
Because I have a question for the attorney.
Okay, that'd be fine too. Make sure we can hear you.
Yeah, my question is simply that with what Denise has said there, if we create, I'm assuming it will be an ad hoc committee, would that alleviate much of your questions?
That would add more questions.
That would add more
Yeah,
questions,
now we're talking about some other committee that doesn't presently exist that may or may not have the legal authority to recommend an amendment to a comprehensive plan. Again, if that is what you have in mind as an end goal here. I still don't think I have a clear enough understanding of what the end product is that you're looking for, because I've heard some things that sound like a planning document, but I've also heard elements of the discussion that sound more like kind of economic development initiative type discussions, which may or may not be a planning document. So I think there needs to be some clarity as to what the end goal is in terms of whether or not you're trying to do something that requires a particular legal process or not. And if you're trying to do that, we have to figure out how to accomplish that. I guess the other observation I would have is, so my experience with something like this, with these more detailed neighborhood plans, the closest I've been to it is with one of my clients, the Village of Sherwood Hills. And they had two little neighborhoods, both very small. You all may remember the Pyar Square building on University Avenue. That was one they had a neighborhood plan for just that little area around that building. And so they had both a TIF and a TIF project plan, and they had a neighborhood plan, and the neighborhood plan was in fact adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. And those then became both the planning and kind of financial tools that were available to guide development interest and outcomes in both that neighborhood and then the Marshall Court neighborhood. If any of you are familiar with, it's kind of called Doctors Park, along University Avenue where all the lights are up at the holidays. Mm-hmm. Right there behind all those lights, that's called Doctors Park. And it's a street that's about 2 blocks long. And the village said, this entire neighborhood is going to redevelop over the next 20 years, 15 years. And so they developed a neighborhood plan for that at the front end 15, 20 years ago. That plan then, and they had a TIF. So you had a TIF plan and a neighborhood plan. And those two documents were the core tools that were used to kind of shape how that neighborhood was redeveloped over time. And they're now down to about the last couple of parcels that are being redeveloped. And those were plans that focused on about a 1-block area in each case and answered lots of questions for people who might have interest in development. So that's kind of my experience with what I'm hearing you talking about. And so you already have TIF plans, I think, and maybe you might need to amend those TIF plans, I don't know. And now you're talking about something different, which sounds to me like a detailed neighborhood plan that might be part of a comprehensive plan. If that's what you're shooting for, then we have to follow the legal process to get there. And that means you need either the Plan Commission or another authorized body to develop the amendment, to recommend it to council, It has to be done using an approved public participation process and plan, and sounds like you want that. But, so we've got to have a clear picture of like, what are you trying to get to, what point are you trying to get to, and make sure you design a process that will get you there.
Okay, thank you. Did I see another hand over here? Alderperson Hirsch? Or Reeves? I'm sorry.
I also support the idea of a master plan, and I appreciate the attorneys kind of letting us know some of the things that we have to think about. But I also agree that it could lay the groundwork for future economic development. I like that it supports what the citizens have requested in terms of focusing and spending some time and resources on our downtown, but also supporting our downtown businesses. And I know firsthand, I spend a lot of time in there, in my district, that they have felt neglected. So I think this would be a way to boost, their input if we do it right. So I think this is a great opportunity.
And just kind of summarize where we left our conference call today. One of the things we talked about was the redevelopment authority having another discussion at it at their next meeting. And I think the idea was to maybe get more specific plan together and then communicate with Attorney Dragney to find out what the structure might look like if we decided to go forward with something like this. Is that how you understood it?
I would really like to know from Attorney Dragney, answer the question. Planning Commission or other authorized bodies, is the RDA another authorized body?
And we'll get I don't have it tonight, but we'll
Yeah,
get it.
you don't, but I think that's an important piece for the RDA to know. Because if the RDA is not an authorized body, then we aren't the ones who should be having the discussion.
I would expect to know that by our next meeting, and I believe the RDA meets after that.
Yeah, it will, they meet the day after City Council, so I guess it's December 12th.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something obviously we want to move forward on. In fact, we have the comprehensive plan on the CACP meeting that's coming up next week, and this is one of the components that we were going to talk about. So it's been on our radar, and we obviously want to move forward, but it's not like it's time sensitive, so we can certainly do our due diligence before we start the process, and I think that's at the point we're at now. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions or concerns that we're either heading down the right path or we should be looking at something other than what we're talking about? Because I think what we're talking about is something that's going to take some time to put together, but at the end result is going to be something that really has some teeth in it, and it's something that can hold us accountable and give us, some focus to go in a direction and with an end result. And I think that's what people would like to see, but it's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to take some time commitment from whoever ends up participating in this.
And again, there's money available, but the money is not available after March of 2021. And that was one of the reasons why I brought it forward. Because after looking at when the money was available, we only have, 2 years that this money is actually available to us for this planning process. So while we don't have to, make decisions within the next month, it is something that actually is going to be time sensitive. So, and I just wanted to apologize. I didn't realize that this was on the CACP, agenda. I try to look at everybody's agendas, and I think that it was the time that the meeting was canceled, and then I didn't look at the agenda. So I just want to apologize.
No, but we're on the same page here, and I think that's good. So, yeah, go ahead. Did you have your hand up, Greg?
Yeah.
Okay, Alderperson Jensen and then Weisinger.
Sounds like we have, well, I'll let Lisa go first, because I was
Oh,
going to
no,
make a
I'm
motion
done.
to
It was Nicole.
Oh, Nicole, excuse me. Let her
Go
go
ahead.
first.
Well, I support this. I think it's a good idea, but in the end, if there's a plan, it does go to council for approval, right?
Yes.
If it is intended to be approved as an amendment to the comprehensive plan, it would have to be approved by ordinance by the council.
Okay. In an alternative, it wouldn't have to be approved by council?
Well, again, it depends on what kind of plan we're talking about. So an amendment to a TIF plan would have to be approved by council, a redevelopment plan. There are like 25 different kinds of plans that are statutory.
Okay.
And then there are plans that aren't even statutory, that are just plans that people have that don't really have any legal authority behind them,
Okay.
that would not have to be approved by, like a committee could develop a plan that doesn't really have any legal authority, but the committee wants to have a plan.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Okay. Did you have something, Greg?
Yeah. Just-
Go ahead.
Somebody else?
Go ahead, and then we'll go to,
Okay, because my motion was going to be, well, I'll.
you're going to have a motion? Okay, then we'll go over to Tass.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is actually for the students that are in the crowd. If any of you guys want to participate in a committee and come really learn and delve into something that you're always welcome.
Okay, go ahead.
Questions for attorney, and then do we have enough direction?
Well, my direction is, as I understand it, to determine whether the council could authorize the redevelopment authority to act in place of the plan commission to develop a detailed neighborhood plan that would serve as an amendment to the comprehensive plan.
So it sounds like with the next meeting of the RDA and the CACP, that we should have some information by our January 8th meeting, council meeting. So I'd move to table this until our January 8th meeting.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Motion to table is not debatable. So all in favor of table, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.
Delicious.